you because you're obsessed and weird.
I'm still trying to figure out who the f you are. You a rapper? 1 minute you put the snitches, the next minute you with peace in the street.
Hip hop's biggest hypocrite.
I've never heard you hold any gangster rapper accountable.
Give it a rest, bro. Nobody cares about your message because it's filled with hypocrisy and contradictions.
What is this, Mysonne? What are you mad about? How he know that? I hate you old rapping ass, wanna be community active ass.
Oh, I get it. Because that's where the hypocritical comes in.
You speak morals and rob people and want to talk morals and codes? Your reputation never leaves you. There's no honor having thief. Mysonne has been my biggest case study for hip-hop hypocrisy. So much so for years I've watched this Beavis and Butthead cleft lip having motherfucker contradict himself, move the goalposts, dodge accountability, and be a hypocrite to the point that I started commenting on his posts and debating him in the DMs and comments and everywhere else. Not to mention, I've watched this man get cooked like a live lobster screaming in a boiling pot with rubber bands around his claws when going back and forth with the likes of Wack 100, Charleston White, Akademiks, and even 6ix9ine, I think. But years after others done called this ambulance-chasing internet activist out on his bull, I decided to join the cookout with no invite. Because nothing aggravates my soul more than feta cheese and hypocrisy. So over the years, I would debate Mysonne in his DMs and on his posts, till I finally annoyed him to the same degree that he's annoyed me for years having to see his resulting in him blocking me because he ran out of deflections. I personally think he panicked because this internet activist scene that I've seen, all he does is prop himself up as this self-proclaimed real authentic individual who's all about character but really picks and chooses. Like someone looking for the ripest tomato in the little Walmart tomato thing till they find the perfect one in the grocery store. So in this video, I'm gonna break down how Mysonne is an undeniable hypocrite, using several situations that he's had with others as well as myself, and what was said during that back and forth that got him so enraged, he blocked me quicker than a baby mother asking for $40 and getting her Cash App request rejected. Now, being that a lot of people don't know who this hip-hop cleft lip hypocrite is, so I'm gonna give you a little brief backstory just to add a little context before I get into how I out-debated Mysonne, hip-hop's biggest hypocrite. Mysonne, a Bronx native New York rapper who was known for competing at Rucker Park Basketball League with NBA icons like Allen Iverson and Stephen Marbury. He later learned the rap game by battling rappers like DMX and Shine, eventually signing to Def Jam in the late 90s. But Mysonne's album would never see the light of day, kinda like Dr. Dre's Detox album. After Mysonne was charged and convicted of 2 counts of armed robbery and possession of stolen property and was sentenced to 7 to 14 years in prison for allegedly robbing 2 taxi drivers, and was later released in the year 2006. Which I assume by this point he tried to regain traction for his once promising rap career. But around the time of his release, the South was starting to dominate the hip-hop climate, and his once promising hip-hop career never regained traction like a used Goodyear tire that lost its treading. But after his release, he would be reduced to nothing more than a selective politicking internet activist that picks and chooses who to crucify, and worst of all, who to favor by being a hypocrite. Some small examples of his hypocrisy is around the time the designer brand clothing store Gucci received backlash for a face covering that had a lot of similarities to do with face. Gucci, making the new clothing fashion statement a trend, sent a spark of outrage across America, and rightfully so.
I'm upset about the fact that a brand put out some that directly disrespected our whole culture, everything, our history, everything. And we don't see enough value in ourselves to say we just don't f with the brand. If you do want to f with the brand, don't try to diminish the people who fighting against it.
I actually agree with Mysonne not with Gucci. It's the prime reason why I don't wear designer, because if one of them designer brand owners get exposed for being racist again, and I'm Caucasian with all the brand's clothing in my closet, that's a bad look. So why am I tripping then, if I agree with him, right? When late activist rapper King Face, rest in peace, God bless, joins Mysonne's live, he even called Mysonne out on his hypocrisy.
I'm upset about the fact that, because if we win, you benefit from it.
In what way?
They don't get to disrespect you no more.
In what way?
What you mean? Because that means that you can walk into a store and not see no motherfucking face on clothing. Your children don't have to feel like somebody is diminishing them.
Did you boycott Beyonce for wearing the face jacket?
No, because Beyonce is a black woman. So if she decided it was fashion for her,
okay, you just said.
Well, listen to what I'm trying to say.
You said Beyonce is a black woman. So what if a black person wants to buy that from Gucci? Would you consider that a problem?
Say that again.
What if a black person wanted to? What if we like that? What if those black women? I was like, yo, that sweater's fire. I want to cop that.
Can't hear you.
Yo, you got mad. You don't hear me?
We're gonna do it again. Come back on.
Now, as soon as King Face points out the hypocrisy, and I mean the second he points this shit out, Mysonne says he can't hear King Face no more and panics. Now, to be fair, he did bring King Face back up on his live. Face got distracted and didn't re-ask the question that Mysonne pretends that he didn't hear. But if you think I'm reaching with a go-go gadget arm, he did it again with Wack 100 when they were arguing about Mysonne subliminally talking about Wack on Clubhouse. He was upset about Wack 100 doing business with 6ix9ine and felt like voicing his opinion. But Mysonne did this in another Clubhouse room, basically saying how people are giving rats a platform, and again he plays like he can't hear and goes quiet.
I don't know why Mysonne quiet.
No, bro, listen, my thing is this, bro. Mysonne was just going subliminals at Wack, talking all that. I need him to mute his mic. It's called accountability, right,
Because the business he conduct for his business, he know he can't stand with me on that mountain.
And Mysonne, you gotta speak up, dog. He talked the whole damn time, and now Wack come in, and now he's not talking no more. That's weird to me.
No, what Mysonne doing right now ain't all the way 100. You gonna speak on people too, bro? No, he was just saying, so-called gangsters with giving people platform. He was talking about Wack 100 giving 6ix9ine a platform. He was talking about Wack 100 having a platform on Clubhouse. Wack 100 is right here. Why is he not speaking?
No, let me say something real quick.
Okay,
right?
okay, there we go.
I was having a conversation about some other. The reality is, me and Wack gotta have a face-to-face conversation. I'm not doing this internet with him because he's playing the game that I don't play, and he know that. So I'm not gonna do
what
this.
Game, wait, what game is that? What you mean?
Have me and this man go back and forth.
Nah, you brought my name up when they telling me my. No, hold on. They say he brought my name up. Don't.
No, they brought your name up, beloved. I don't.
No, you brought his name up.
He brought your name up. And I said,
you did bring his name up. You did bring his name up.
You never said his name up subliminally. Giving platforms on.
Never. I never brought that man name. Don't tell me about no subliminal. I don't play
platform. You said that, bro.
I don't play that type of game.
Well, hey, bro, you my son. You or no other can't dictate to me who I do business with. You did business with Vlad when he was suing for 4-5
I'm not having no the conversation that me and you gonna have face to face, bro.
That's cool, but did you not? Did you not do business with Vlad when he was suing Rick Ross?
He left.
Yeah, he left again. He throws subliminals like he
don't want to play.
Bro, stop playing, bro. I'll never lie on this, bro.
He back.
Mysonne, so what was it you was doing when that Vlad was suing Rick Ross and you was with him? That's what you wanted to do, right?
He ain't gonna answer you.
What does that have to do with the conversation, though?
I mean, what 6ix9ine got to do with what he get? I ain't tied to you. We ain't from the same neighborhood. We ain't on the same label. We don't get no together. So just like think of what you was doing with Vlad when he was suing, right? That's not suing behind disrespect. You give a what I'm doing for.
Now, Wack 100 brings up a good motherfucking point. How are you gonna call Wack out on his business with 6ix9ine when Mysonne, you sat on Vlad TV's couch for years after he sued Rick Ross, after Rick Ross put hands on him? Let's talk about it, bro. That's some hypocritical shit. The ending result was Vlad suing Rick Ross. We don't see having a problem with that, as Wack pointed out.
You post Vlad on your page and wrote underneath that, Vlad is this and that. Mysonne, you on the wrong side. This got to do this and that. Boom, boom, boom. First of all, you're about 2 months late. I don't even with Vlad no more.
As if that negates the hypocrisy. You with him from the jump. It don't matter if you don't with Vlad no more, bozo. The fact that you stay calling someone out for the same that you're guilty of, or been guilty of, or know somebody guilty of it, you still want to give them a pass, and that makes you a hypocrite. And it makes your comment and what the you stand for with the big picture null and motherfucking void. And for some reason, it just doesn't compute with him, bro. But the main person Mysonne seems to have a hypocritical hypersensitivity about is DJ Akademiks.
You got this thing against 6ix9ine and Akademiks. So even if we shut Akademiks down, what about these 5 other blogs? Why you ain't going at them? Why? What's the personal issue with this page? We gonna see it anyway.
And for those that don't know and have been living under a rock, DJ Akademiks basically pioneered hip-hop YouTube. You know, having hip-hop news with jokes pertaining to certain topics with his commentary over it was him pioneering the game, because now a lot of YouTubers do the same thing. He evolved toward other things in the hip-hop media space since then, resulting in him being the leading charge in hip-hop media today in 2025. He gained a lot of traction off his channel, The War in Chirac, where he basically covered the drama and street beefs of Chicago-based rappers and the area in which they live in. But eventually, Akademiks started covering mainstream hip-hop and started moving away from that content. But old heads and old school rappers still try to harp on the fact that he did instigate a lot of street beef with these rappers back in the day, with a lot of rappers still accusing him of stirring the hip-hop pot of hate to encourage and instigate rappers crashing out today like a bad Paul Walker joke. With Mysonne in particular saying, DJ Akademiks.
Like Akademiks, talk about the dumb shit that people are attracted to. You can't even go outside. You're not respected. You are anti what it is that I represent. Any kid is following you, then he's going down a dead end stream.
You want to be in the company of Meek Mill, but you are so blind in your bias that you can't look at Meek and say, Meek, you've been rich and famous for a decade. Why is your music still talking about you doing all the things that's at the detriment of your community? Yet you're talking about prison reform. Why haven't you ever addressed that public? You wouldn't call out Lil Baby for some of his lyrics because you're the failed rapper who want to be with those guys, but your music and your talent never made it. Now you get to try to be the hypocrite. But here's the thing with trying to be an activist. People can see through your bull.
I didn't hear no going at World Star. It was breaking their back trying to get them. Could I give a video up? Nobody went at Q about why you posting this.
Which I could kind of see his point if he wasn't a rapper that used to glorify drug and violence in his music. Now, for the fact that Mysonne claims Akademiks does police work and tricks rappers off the streets, as if Vlad don't have rappers up there talking about crimes they done been involved in, and Mysonne sat up there on Vlad couch for years, is still wild and bewildering to me. Mysonne clearly has a habit of making a strong statement that you can easily poke holes through when critiquing others. Then he moves the goalposts and deflects and tries to give reasoning as to why it's okay for him or someone he favors to do the same thing, but not the person he's critiquing. Similar to how he tried to tell me in the DM that Vlad TV talking about people's cases on YouTube is any different than Akademiks who talks about street hip-hop. Not saying Vlad is to blame for grown-ass men getting up there and admitting that they've committed crimes before, you know, for clout and views and but if Mysonne has an issue with Akademiks, I don't see why he didn't have an issue with Vlad TV from day one. So when me and Mysonne was kinda on friendly debate terms at the time, I brought that to his attention in the DMs by saying, man, you wanna hold Akademiks accountable for what other rappers promote. Street rappers promote but you wouldn't dare call them out, bro. Give it a rest, bro. Nobody cares about your message because it's filled with hypocrisy and contradictions. I told you this like a year ago. Look at your comment section. It's people telling you to hold everybody accountable, not just Akademiks. If you actually held everyone to the same standard, maybe your point would resonate, but it's not. That's why you turned your comments off. He responded back with, he will do anything for content and money. He's a scavenger, and if you don't see it, cool. Most of these people he report on are in their 20s who believe in clout and YouTube fame, and he manipulates that, and ultimately they end up in jail. He knows that. He doesn't care as long as he gets content, and you've never heard Vlad instigating and cursing at anyone. He interviews, and they say what they say. He doesn't give his opinion or instigate. It's way different. The police hold shooters accountable. Who holds Akademiks accountable for instigating beefs that could if he didn't introduce it to millions, forcing these kids to believe that they have to retaliate? He's a major problem. I reminded him of his hypocrisy again by saying, Vlad does the same thing, but you've done countless interviews with him. There's people with bigger voices that need to be held accountable, don't you think? Now at this point, I was being nice because celebs like to block me quick when I get to barking and for the record, Vlad does instigate at times, and he's voiced his opinion at times. A prime example is them interviews with DJ Akademiks. I think they were both talking about Freddie Gibbs, if I'm not mistaken. But I let this ride for now, because I knew it would be more moments like this later that I could call him out about that would be more impactful, because I got that far without being blocked. But eventually, I knew his emotions would kick in right along with that block button. It was just a matter of time. Mysonne likes to wear hats that say like integrity on him when describing himself, and then use the word coward a lot, speaking on coward culture when describing others. But follow me now. The definition of coward: a person who lacks the courage to do or endure dangerous or unpleasant things. Now I wonder if Mysonne, always speaking about Akademiks and Wack 100 on his platforms, but always dodges to speak to them directly for some extended period of time, falls under the coward umbrella. You know, a person who lacks courage to endure dangerous things or do unpleasant things. And you know, to him, talking to them would be unpleasant. If you're gonna speak on people like a gossip girl at the hair salon, why dodge direct discourse with said individuals? If you're going to dodge any direct convo with them online, then why speak about them online in the first place? Because you lack the courage to have an unpleasant convo with them. But if you're talking about them when they can't directly respond, or you tap out and want to keep gossiping instead of directly speaking to them after the fact like you did to Wack 100, by definition, not opinion, you fit the coward category, Mysonne. By definition. Not only did you contradict yourself on calling others what really describes you, but you went from saying you never talked to Akademiks to saying you're not opposed to talking with him.
We represent something totally different. So when you sit there and say, talk to me, I would never talk to you. Why would I talk to you? You've proven that you I just want to let people know what it is that you represent.
Can this be squashed between y'all? You know what I mean? Is that even something that could happen?
I mean, I'm not really opposed to having a conversation with him.
But then said it had to be in person and hung up and talked about him again in the future like a coward. And that's not my opinion, that's by definition. What Mysonne is trying to do to Akademiks by wanting to cancel and censor him is no different than what Delorous Tucker tried to do to Tupac back in the day. C. Delorous Tucker, a prominent civil rights activist, was known for her opposition to gangster rap and its perceived negative influence on the youth. This activism led to a clash with rap artists, including Tupac Shakur, who responded to her criticism with lyrics in his music.
I am here to put the nation on notice that violence perpetuated against women through the music industry in the forms of gangster rap and misogynist lyrics will not be tolerated any longer.
I'm going to the studio to make Bob Dole mad. I'm finna go make Bob, I'm finna make you real mad right now. You with Delorous Tucker. I'm finna make a hit for y'all right now called We Love Snoop. F all y'all.
We've already established Mysonne won't apply these same points to Tupac, so we won't even try to go down that road because that's an obvious route. But the same way Pac and others urge parents to monitor what their kids listen to, in the same way parents need to monitor what their kids see on the internet as well in today's time in 2025. But when that gets pointed out, he then moves the goalposts like he thinks he's good at doing by saying Akademiks isn't qualified to talk about street politics because he doesn't have a street background. Well, in my opinion, Akademiks is the perfect person to talk about the streets and cover what goes on because he's not in the streets. Why, as a self-proclaimed street guy or ex-street guy, would you rather someone who has a previous or current street background to get on YouTube to talk about public record street politics online or about their own get indicted like the No Jumper Crew podcast? So it seems to me like Mysonne must want, to allegedly see street dudes go to jail. Because why would you want them to put themselves in that predicament when they're mixed up in the streets? Akademiks is not in the street and never was, so he'd be the perfect candidate to talk about whatever is public record going on in the streets because he's not engaged in anything that's going to send him to jail or anyone around him. If Akademiks finds out about it, trust me, the feds knew long about it before Akademiks got a hold of it. What Mysonne, an out-of-touch street dude, fails to realize is this is the internet, bro. Street rules, morals, codes, and ethics and all that does not mix with social media and entertainment most of the time. I don't know why rappers and ex-street dudes get online and try to enforce trenches rules on social media upon civilians. Akademiks has all the say-so about any trending topic online because it's the internet and this is where he thrives at. Now, if Akademiks went to the hood in real life and did what he's doing online, then he would be out of place. Then whoever runs that block could have all the say-so, but Akademiks is doing it from the metaverse, where street dudes shouldn't even care that he's talking about this on the internet. Say what you want, but you so-called street rappers or ex-street dudes is corny for trying to hold street codes to internet culture. Another person Mysonne, the metaverse hypocrite, called out is someone I actually met in person, Charleston White.
You better be going viral, bro.
You do?
Yeah,
keep
man.
posting me.
Mysonne basically isn't fond of Charleston White's trolling. He's basically fallen for the internet character because he never met Charleston White the person. So Mysonne actually posted Charleston White and agreed with something that he said, then said he doesn't f with him when he, talked down on Charlie, and Charlie responded.
Listen, first of all, I do not even like the man. I think his delivery is harsh. I think he's exactly what he is. I think it's a fraud. I think his whole persona is a fraud. But when even a broken clock is right at least 2 times a day.
What is this Mysonne, whatever this name is, what he mad about? I don't even know that. Yeah, you. Yeah, I don't even know you, clown. I hate you old rapping ass, wanna be community activist, New York. Shit from New York City. We used to see them what was that, the Picante South commercial? Say this is made in New York City. New York City.
This cream cheese dip will win first prize with my secret ingredient. Paste picante sauce ain't no secret. I use paste in the queso dip. I got a secret ingredient. That stuff made in New York City. New York City. That's one secret you ought to keep the lid on.
Get a rope. Yeah, we used to watch them commercials as a kid. So we always knew some from New York ain't never been silent. Is you talking about this made in New York City. And all the cowboys getting mad. New York City! Get a rope. Just play that in commercial. So we ain't never like New York. Fucking ass shit. You. I can dance this. I hate you old rapping ass, rhyming ass. I can't make that shit rhyme, but I can now talk to you. Dumb. You done been to prison too? You a convict. Inmate. Convict felon. I ain't no convict felon. Ain't done nothing to you. Looking nasty, but told you where to get the truth. My son, you probably the two you been to prison, ain't you? You done seen it. You done heard it. That's what go on in prison. It's a factory. I ain't never been at factory. I went to the boys' home.
Now recently, after this Mysonne coward blocked me, which I'll get into later in this video, I see that this man posted Charleston White again when I checked his IG page from a burner page. It was in reference to old footage of Charleston White as a teenager. You know, Charleston White testifying against his friend and all that.
Out the backseat of the car.
16-year-old Charleston White took the stand and testified against his friend, Antoine Doolittle, who sat just a few feet from him and listened intently.
He pulled off, and the hammer back on.
And then what happened?
He fired it.
He snitched on him after they caught a body as a group. Mind you, Charleston White has always spoke against not snitching and the streets. He's basically always owned the fact that he was a snitch or would snitch. He's never claimed to be a gangster or goes by street codes, and he's openly admitted that he would call the police if popped off and went left. So people in Mysonne's comments were lost as to why other people are defending Charleston White. But what Mysonne clearly doesn't get is his hypocrisy. Because by only singling out a select few group of people, make people want to debate him and insult him because nobody likes a hypocrite. He doesn't see that this picking and choosing makes his message null and void. It's kind of similar to the alcoholic dad telling his kids not to drink while he's drinking his third beer in front of them. It's the same concept, which was noticed by this user. Sad part, reading these comments, I'm really starting to realize the fake are outnumbering the real. Mysonne tries to say, we've always been outnumbered, champ, but I like our odds. Oh my God, so cringy and corny, bro. Weird how you bring this up, but not the man he is today. People always want to dig up the past. You don't see many folks bringing up your cab robbing days, do you? Mysonne says, that man's a rat and bragged about something crime he ratted on. We not the same. Also, for Mysonne to compare himself to Charleston White saying he never told is also corny. Mysonne was only facing a year and a day if he would have taken a plea deal, but he took it to trial like a bozo and lost. What pressure is there to snitch for a year and a day? No prosecutor is going to lean on you and threaten life in prison if they only want a year and a day out of you. There is no real pressure to say you would ever tell just based off of some weak shit like that, opposed to someone like Charleston White, who was facing an unaliving charge and doing life in prison. I don't condone unaliving or snitching, and I don't condone snitching if you're not a civilian. The pressure of life in prison opposed to a year and a day is some corny shit to compare yourself to. The real ones know where I'm coming from and know what I'm talking about. In the appeal paperwork, it says they had y'all dead to rights with possession of stolen property and 2 eyewitness testimonies of a robbery saying you did it. They did not need Mysonne to snitch to get a conviction. So when he says he could have went home that day by snitching on the people he was with, I believe that's cap. Because usually when you're involved in a robbery, no matter what the state is, in most cases, you do not get some, oh yeah, slap on the wrist, you can go home today. Everybody gets held accountable for that robbery and sits on a no bond most of the time. Here's an example of how Mysonne reacts and responds when his past get brought up by yours truly.
So listen, I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you borrow something from somebody, pay them back. I don't give a fuck if they rich. I don't care if they poor. I don't care if they got $1 million. You think they rich, they don't need it. If you borrow something from somebody, pay it back to them.
I saw this and almost dropped my phone in disbelief. No bull. Knowing this man did like 7 years for robbing 2 cab drivers. He really has the audacity to sit here and say that someone should pay back someone if they borrowed money from them, knowing his done stole money from 2 cab drivers. So I comment up under that, and all I do is ask a simple question, and look how this plays out. So I comment up under that video by simply asking his goofy a question. Bro, stop. You literally robbed a taxi driver. Did you pay your victims back that you robbed? Damn, the hypocrisy on this guy never stops, laughing my ass off. Then he responds to me, when did we meet? You literally have no idea who I am. You don't know anything about me. I respond back with, did I lie? I don't need to know about you to read articles of what you did. Yeah, I'm guessing you ain't paid them back since you deflected. He tries to respond back again. You don't have a clue what you're talking about. And then I said, so did you not rob a taxi driver? I'm just making this up. I asked you 3 questions, so if I don't know what I'm talking about, and you do, why am I not getting a direct answer to the questions that I'm asking? As you can see, he's avoiding answering me like he did with Wack 100 and King Face, rest in peace to him. As soon as you call Mysonne out on some that makes no sense, or something that he clearly was a hypocrite about, he stops responding, he acts like he can't hear you, or he goes on mute on Clubhouse when you point out his bull. You see, the common theme that Mysonne has against Charleston White, 6ix9ine, Wack 100, and DJ Akademiks is he feels Charleston White and Akademiks are detrimental to the culture with messages and media that they put out. You know, with 6ix9ine and Charleston White, he doesn't like them because basically they snitched. Even though he has or knows someone else that's been guilty at least one of the 2 of these things. But the common theme is he's against snitching and people needing to be canceled who he feels are detrimental to the culture and who profit off of negativity. Yet Mysonne went live bragging about how he still makes money off of his old music to this day. Yep. That same old music that promotes the same kind of messages that he says Akademiks is promoting. All Akademiks does is cover the news. This man is glorifying street life in his records that he still profits off of. And if that's the case, that means there's still young kids listening to that music that glorifies that same negativity that he's pointing out. So what makes this clown that much different from Akademiks, as far as message-wise that they put out? I'm confused here, bro. Mysonne explained on many occasions that he doesn't condone snitching because if somebody gets caught, they have to stand on what they do and take accountability for their actions and not take other people down with them because they got caught. And honestly, I 100% subscribe to this code if you are not a civilian. Majority of people don't like a street dude that turns out to be a rat who doesn't take accountability. Well, since Mysonne's released from prison, he hasn't really taken any accountability. He maintains his innocence by denying that it was actually him that robbed these 2 taxi cab drivers. So since he avoided me in his comments after a while, like a door knock from Rent-A-Center when the couch is past due, I went ahead and did some digging of my own and found his appeal to the courts that he had from prison. Now in this paperwork, he's basically saying how he was wrongfully convicted after taking his case to trial like an idiot when they only offered him a year and a day in prison. He then loses trial and gets sentenced to 7 to 14 years in prison. You see, Mysonne's hypocrisy runs deep and has many layers, but when his past gets brought up, he went live saying everyone goes through things and blah, blah, blah.
He accused of robbing a cab driver in the year 1998. That's my reality. So when y'all come on here with this rob the cab driver corny shit, it's just actually stupid, and it's cap and it's stupid. It would do you a service if you just actually did a little more research. Just being positive, man. We all go through certain things in life, and sometimes it's hard, it's tough.
Then as soon as Charleston White's testifying video surfaces, Mysonne contradicts himself yet again by bringing up Charleston White's past. And if you point this out, to him, he simply deflects by saying, oh, he's a rat. Mysonne clearly has a habit of making a strong statement that you can easily poke holes through when critiquing others. Then he moves the goalposts and deflects and tries to give reasoning as to why it's okay for him or someone he favors to do the same thing, but not the person he's critiquing. Now let's get into the Hattie War that had the word integrity on it and the definition of that word. The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. Now this word contradicts his coward culture insult, because the coward is afraid to do or endure unpleasant or dangerous things. Someone with integrity has moral principles and uprightness by definition. So can the person who's doing dangerous and unpleasant things be the same person that has moral and principles, like robbing cab drivers? But if you ask Mysonne, he'll tell you he was wrongfully convicted and claims he never stole anything in his life.
I was arrested for doing robberies that I never committed, actually. So I went to trial, ended up losing that trial, blowing trials, we say, and being sentenced to 7 to 14 years.
2 cab drivers got, I guess, up and robbed?
No, both of them supposedly robbed their one was up and jumped by a bunch of people, and one was robbed at just by itself.
Were these 2 separate incidents?
2 separate incidents.
Okay. And both those cab drivers said that you did it?
Yeah. I got arrested in '97. And me and a cab driver got into an altercation. No, he was never robbed. There was never a weapon. Me and him got into a physical altercation over me to pay him more than I felt he should be paid.
Okay.
So he pulled out a bat. I tried to run from the cab. He swung the bat, missed me. I ended up breaking my toe. A month later down the line, he comes to my neighborhood, and we out there playing CeeLo. And my son's mother, who was there during the first altercation, sees the cab driver. Like, oh, this is the guy right here. I'm like, I'm not gonna do nothing to him here because I live on this block. He ended up telling my friends, that's the guy that chased my son. So me and him started talking. Next thing you know, somebody hit him. Me and him are tussling. While we tussling, I hit him and he falls. Okay. I just ran off.
So there was another physical altercation?
There was a physical altercation.
With the same guy?
But there was no robbery, there was no weapon. I got locked up for armed robbery.
Okay, so this is the same guy twice?
No, the second guy I've never even seen or heard from.
Okay,
ever.
So there's another guy.
You know, it was an altercation. We ran after I hit him and he fell, I ran, and he went and made up a story. So he couldn't actually go to court because it would have been perjury. He couldn't say, yo, I lied, there was never no weapons, nobody robbed me and none of that. So he tried to retract his statement and not testify, but the jury didn't really care. You know, me and him actually got cool after that. We got really cool. I came up to him, you know, we had a conversation and apologized, and he wanted to drop the case, but the law would not allow him to drop the case.
What are the chances 2 cab drivers pick him out of a photo lineup? Sure, one could have lied about it because he got into a tussle with one of them and had, you know, one of the cab drivers have, you know, motive to lie. And the other one could just genuinely pick the wrong person out. But what are the chances of both of these things happening twice to the same person? So both cab drivers are wrong and Mysonne is right. Even by some winning lottery ticket miracle chances, all this is true, and they picked the wrong guy, then why in the appeal papers does it say you have 2 counts of criminal possession of stolen property? I don't blame a man for trying to get out of prison under any means necessary, but once you do your time and come out and have no accountability being taken, the same accountability that you want to hold for everybody else, like DJ Akademiks and Charleston White and everybody else, that's where the issue comes into play at. But looking over his appeal paperwork, it lists some charges. Judgment, Supreme Court, Bronx County, rendered September 7th, 1999, convicting defendant after jury trial of robbery in the 1st degree, 2 counts. Robbery in the 2nd degree, 2 counts. Criminal possession of stolen property in the 5th degree, and criminal possession of a firearm in the 4th degree, sentencing him to an aggregate term of 7 to 14 years. And this is how the state of New York City proves that someone was dealing in stolen property. To prove possession of stolen property in New York, the prosecution must demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant knowingly possessed stolen property with the intent to benefit themselves or another, or to prevent the owner from recovering it. Here's a more detailed breakdown. Here are the elements of the crime. Knowledge. The prosecution must prove that the defendant knew the property was stolen, not just that they possessed it. Possession. The prosecution needs to prove that the defendant had the property either physically, actual possession, or constructively, which is control over the property. Intent. The prosecution must show that the defendant intended to either benefit from the property or prevent the owner from recovering it. The prosecution does not need to prove the defendant was the person who stole the property. It's not a defense that the person who stole the property was not caught, convicted, or even identified. It is also not a defense if the theft occurred outside of New York State. So even though we don't know if he was really the one that robbed them people, he was in possession of stolen property. Now, mind you, in his past interviews, he claimed he never got caught with anything. There was no evidence.
So I went to trial, and unfortunately, being young black in America, you don't win trials, even when they don't have any evidence.
I ain't never take nothing. I ain't never steal nothing from a in my life. Never stole nothing from a anybody. Anything I did, I got a earned it. I ain't never trick a to give me nothing. I ain't never lie.
But not one time did he ever mention any of these other counts of possession of stolen property in any lives he's done or any interviews with Vlad when mentioning these robberies. So it seems like, to me, in my opinion, he's allegedly purposely hiding that. Possession is 9/10 of the law. I don't see him get arrested, then filing an appeal, and the appeal being denied if they had no evidence on him like he claims, especially for having control over the stolen property. So let's get into the appeal. As to each of the two incidents, the verdict was based on legally sufficient evidence and was not against the weight of the evidence. Issues of credibility and identification, including the evaluation of prior identification testimony. In addition to rationally concluding that defendant was one of the persons who surrounded the victim, the jury could also have rationally concluded that the defendant intentionally participated in the crime by helping prevent the victim from escaping. I point out all that to display proof that this man does not take no accountability. Similar to the accountability he wants DJ Akademiks and others to practice who aren't from the streets, yet Mysonne is from the streets and can't even take accountability for his own street bull. So he has no room to tell others when to take accountability when he dodges accountability literally at every turn. But the reason why Mysonne dodges accountability when it comes to these charges is because it looks like he went down on some fiends, just robbing a taxi cab driver for probably barely anything, and keeps the stolen property in his control according to the appeal paper, allegedly. So his pride and ego won't allow him to take accountability for what really happened in his case, because he knows this shit is fucking embarrassing as shit. So he sits up here on social media and tries to pretend like, oh yeah, I wrongfully convicted. Get the out of here, bro. We saw the appeal paper, bro. They had some evidence on you, dogs.
Me and my son have no business to cross paths. He seems to have a opinion about street. I don't see him as a street dude. He's just a dude from New York. He ain't the you know. I know the man personally, so I'm not gonna have a conversation with him about any street politics because he's not a street dude to me. Now, whatever he is to him and his peers, they know that. I don't know that, respectfully.
But listen, bro, you came in that room, and the first thing you said was that ain't no activist, he an opportunist. I know that ain't this, he ain't no street.
You're not. You're not. You're not none of that.
Okay, cool.
You're not.
All right.
But when Wack says Mysonne isn't a street dude, he's right, because there is no street dude that's going to take something to trial that they can only do a year and a day on, no matter if they did it or not, because the ending result is you still got the conviction any motherfucking way. So that's why the smart, wise men cop out to the year and a day. If you don't got a motherfucking tell, cop out to the year and a day then. What you talking about? It's a chess game. You blew trial and they gave you 7 years because you didn't know how the system works and wanted to play with them because you are not a street guy and thought this was sweet. Another example of him moving the goalpost for accountability is when T.I. got backlash for snitching on his cousin who passed away by telling the courts the belonged to his dead cousin.
Police, pull us over. Pull us over. Why are we going through the court process? And so we caught those cases. Two died. And, you know, my lawyer said, well, you know, I can make everything go away if it was Tramel's. After he had passed, I had a talk with him.
What you say?
She said, I take all the charges you got. If you can walk away free and put it on me, right.
Mysonne defended T.I.'s actions by saying basically it's okay to snitch if the person you're snitching on and blaming it on is a dead person.
I think the logic that somebody thinks that if they can tell on somebody who doesn't suffer any consequences, that's where the street start coming in, right? I think that if you believe that somebody's supposed to sit in jail for a bunch of years, when probably those might have been his cousins, right? It might have been his cousins. So I'm gonna sit in jail for that might have been my cousins. Why he can't serve no consequences. He ain't doing that. I don't got the blessings from his family. Everybody else is saying do it, and you telling me to sit in because some street rules told you that I should sit in jail for some dumb when I can stay out of jail just by saying that a man who can't serve no consequences committed the crime? Y'all gotta start.
So this man preaches all day about accountability, right? When it comes to committing crimes. So much so that he targets people like Charleston White who openly admits that they will snitch. Yet when it comes time to take accountability and there is a way out not to take that accountability, then this man does what he does best and move the goalposts. He claims it doesn't make sense to take that accountability in that situation because the person is dead and doesn't have to face consequences. But what he's not factoring in is the person that he's snitching on has a family, a name, and a legacy, and you're tainting that beyond the grave. I hope haunt you for this bull. Regardless of how you look at it, that person isn't alive to give you consent for you to smear their name. With that mentality, Mysonne, how the do you think someone's family would feel about that, bro? You feel what I'm saying? No, you don't, because you're a delusional hypocrite, so you'll never get what I'm saying. Moving the goalposts like Mysonne does only makes the younger generation he's trying to speak to feel like this is okay to move the goalposts too. And then it's not going to be moved in the same way that the old heads agree with. But then they're going to be the first one to complain. This happens so much so over the years that the code of not snitching is not respected anymore because of the hypocrisy behind it. That's why, in my opinion, attacking people like Mysonne's hypocrisy is important because of that. Because all Mysonne is doing when he talks about the street shit and codes and honor is he confuses the younger generation. And this is who you're trying to speak to. In my opinion, it's just not that impactful as it could be because of your hypocrisy. Also, Mysonne preaches about honor, but in all actuality, there's no honor among thieves, and there's a famous quote that says that. Mysonne knows he can't admit to robbing the people and still preach honor, so that's why accountability isn't being taken for what he's done. And if that's the case, he needs to take the word honor out of his vocabulary. Now, I could show examples all day about how this guy's a hypocrite and how I told him that regarding the Meek and Akademiks situation with Desiree Perez, how he called out Akademiks about women but not Fabulous over the Emily B situation. You know, I could display more DMs about how I went at this guy and I schooled him in a debate and all that other. But I feel like I proved my point for the most part. I think it's time to get into the meat and potatoes as to why this emotional ambulance chaser blocked me, finally, after years. So as we all know, Kamala Harris lost the election to Donald Trump and did not become president like many had hoped for, Mysonne being one of them. For the record, I don't care about politics or politicians. I agree and disagree with people too frequently to have ever voted for anybody or forever to take any person's side in this world 100%. I'm never going to agree with a person 100% of the time, so I don't vote. and don't get into politics, because that's what you have to do if you with politics. But I could never pass up a good opportunity to call out Mysonne on his hypocrisy bull. I knew he would emotionally respond and I'd get blocked like I've always wanted to by him, you know, hypocrite. So Mysonne wanted Kamala Harris to win the US presidency, but like many, when she lost, he began stomping his feet, crying, complaining, and trying to chase another ambulance, trying to monetize off of the fake outrage that was going on social media when Kamala Harris did lose. Mysonne began making back-to-back posts about Donald Trump, and of course, after getting aggravated with his hypocrisy over the years, I started paying close attention to these Donald Trump posts. And in the comments, I came across him replying to somebody about Donald Trump saying, "Sure was. I don't even like people I used to love because they with Trump. And I was never this mad and angry all the time. I'm not even the same kind of person. I'm in war mode all day. I'm not okay." So after reading this, bro, and recovering from laughing for 3 minutes straight, I decided to crash out. Enough is enough, bro. It's time to turn up on him a little more than I have ever did due to his hypocrisy. So then I take a screenshot and I take this to my Instagram story saying, "Homie cutting his friends off but won't delete his Instagram when the platform is owned by Zuckerberg, who supports Trump. This is why I don't take you internet activists serious. At Mysonne, being at war online is crazy, laughing my ass off. What war is it? The World Wide Web 3? This man spoke on Charleston White, and Charleston White has got laws changed in real life. All you're doing is going to war with yourself. Step outside and make a difference instead of posting all day on a platform that supports Trump." Man, shut the f*** up. I've gotten laws changed. I'm not ever inside. Get off my you clown. Post that. Where did I lie at? Why don't you delete IG? Zuck supported Trump though. You mad your boyfriend is off Twitch? Get out of here. I don't care about anyone. I go with everyone. You obsessed with him. You robbed them taxi cab drivers. Nobody takes your preaching serious when you rob civilians. You're obsessed with me, bro. Get a life. I comment on everyone's and you're obsessed with Trump. I guess when you run out of deflections, you go to insulting, but it's cool. You speak morals and rob people on some shit and want to talk morals and codes? That's reserved for members and not crackheads who rob defenseless people. You'll cut your people off because of Trump, but we'll keep a platform that supports him. R. Kelly did his deed 30 years ago. Your reputation never leaves you. Look up March to Injustice, bozo. We marched from New York to D.C. with 3 pieces of legislation. Got 2 passed. Look up RaiseTheAge.org. Got the age of adult prosecution. Raised it in New York. Get off my So then why won't you delete a platform that supports Trump? Laughing my off because this is the only place you got a voice at. Let's be honest. I'm just gonna block you because you're obsessed and weird. See, I knew this guy went from state to state protesting and holding picket signs, right? I know he really be outside, but we all know I'm a troll at the end of the day. I just wanted to bait him into the response so I could back him into a corner so I could get blocked like I always wanted to by this hypocrite and get him upset and frustrated because those other little bait tactics didn't work in the past. But being that he's this affected by Donald Trump, I could not miss this opportunity. I guess to wrap this up in a neat little bow, I would say this man who doesn't practice what he preaches and expects others to challenge and change the opinion of the masses with his hypocrisy is a delusional man, but not a complete idiot. So I feel like he knows what he's doing. I feel like he's just trying to get into the algorithm like the rest of us, but it's not that well thought out, and a lot of holes get poked in his points. But my whole thing is, just be real with yourself. If Mysonne came out and said, yes, he's a hypocrite and he picks and chooses, and yes, he singles out academics because he doesn't like them. If he came out and said, yes, I'm just doing this to get into the algorithm, I'd probably have no rap for him over time. The issue is Charleston White makes sense and is entertaining. Mysonne is a boring hypocrite whose message will never be taken serious, just like Meek Mill, both due to their hypocrisy. And there you have it. I just showed you a hypocrite that got cooked by the likes of Wack 100, Charleston White, Akademiks, and of course, by yours f***ing truly. Like, what are we talking about right now, huh? Mysonne doesn't understand that people follow Charleston White, Akademiks, Wack 100 because regardless of what message they convey, because 90% of the time they are consistent. Their points apply to everybody across the board. And they're not afraid to call out everybody in order to save and protect their credibility. And if they are being biased, if they are running the play, if they are playing an internet character, they're upfront about their intentions of their message. What Mysonne doesn't get is that goes a long way with people if you're just consistent. Mysonne, on the other hand, is only consistent about 10% of the time. And is just a walking contradiction the other 90% of the time. Which makes him hip-hop hypocrisy's biggest case study. There is nobody in the hip-hop atmosphere that has contradicted themselves, moved the goalpost, and flat out lied when it was convenient like this no honor-having thief because he robbed 2 civilian cab drivers, and it was so satisfying to call him out on his bull for years because I was triggered about this hypocrisy he was displaying to everybody for motherfucking years. This ain't the first time I've made a video about him. But if you like me calling these rappers out on their bullshit, man, go on ahead and like, subscribe, and all that fly. Hey, what you mean? Put some respect on my bro.